attracted me to this business was realizing that in local counties like Dallas, Texas, you could have dozens of properties for auction and you don't need a bundle of cash to buy them. So you can either get a property for pennies on the dollar, and if the property was redeemed, you can make 25%.
Welcome as we talk about auctions to high interest returns, Dallas County tax deeds. And this is Ted Thomas, who is, of course, the tax deed and tax lien authority. He's going to be doing the talking. I'm going to be asking the questions, but the questions actually come from you. Question number one, Ted. This comes from Sydney on Twitter. I spoke with an employee from the Dallas County Treasurer's Office, and they informed me that winning at auction doesn't grant me ownership of the property. What's the reasoning behind this?
Well, what's going on in Texas is they have a redeemable deed state. So what they do when they have the auction, they actually sell the property. They sell the deed to the property to someone in the audience that wants to buy it. Highest bidder is going to get it. However, the property owner has a right of redemption. All right, now this confuses a lot of people, but this really happens at all Texas auctions, okay? It's a redeemable state. So they will sell the deed, and that person that lost the property has 180 days to come forward. They have to pay the highest bidder, number one, all the money that they invested, plus a 25% return. So if you are buying in Texas and someone redeemed the property, you wouldn't get the property, but you would get a 25% return. Think about that. In all 254 Texas counties, that's the process they use. So the person that won the property, they just have to sit and wait 180 days before they're actually going to own the property. How about that?
Question two, Ted, comes from Anna, who's on YouTube, and she wonders, I noticed when looking up auctions in Dallas County, Texas, that a sheriff's sale keeps popping up. Is that the same thing as a tax delinquent auction?
Well, it is the same as a tax delinquent auction. Actually, what really takes place is the legislature makes the law, and then they send the law down to the Board of Supervisors or county commissioners. The county commissioners assign who's ever going to do the auction. Generally speaking, in most states, it's going to be the treasurer. Now, in Texas, they're going to talk about the sheriff is going to do the auction, but maybe it's a constable, or maybe it's just a county employee. But the point is, whoever is assigned now has the power to sell the property. It's called power of sale. They now have the power to sell that property at auction. I'm not an attorney, but I hope you're getting the idea. Okay, now the redemption period, again, is another confusing one for a lot of people, so let's make it simple. So if you are buying a single-family property at a Texas auction, you raise your hand, you're the highest bidder, all right, they're going to grant you a deed to that property. However, it's a redeemable deed. That means the property owner has 180 days to come forward and say, I want my property back. That means they have to pay you because you bought that deed. They have to pay you everything you paid plus a 25% return and all your expenses. So that isn't a bad deal. If you didn't get the property, you're going to get a 25% return. That's a good deal no matter which side of the fence you're on. Now, why are people confused? Because different classes of property, for example, a single family home is different than an agricultural property where they're growing row crops or cabbage or let's say an orchard or something like that. That's agricultural property. Those properties have 2 years, property owners have 2 years to come forward and then get a redemption on their property. So that's what confuses people. But generally, we're talking about people buying single-family homes. A single-family home, it's 180 days before you actually own the property. But if it's redeemed, you're still going to make a 25% penalty return.
Question 4 comes from Abby. She was on Twitter. Abby asks, is there a deposit required to attend Dallas County tax auctions?
Now, Dallas, like many counties across the United States, will require a deposit. Now, this, again, it can be confusing. So you need to read the rules. If you don't read the rules, you're going to get in trouble. Here's why. Some counties will say they want a percentage of how much you're going to bid. For example, you're going to bid $100,000 as your maximum bid. You might have to put a percentage of that as your deposit. Other counties will say, no, we just want $500 or $2,000. Los Angeles, for example, requires $5,000. But yes, you definitely have to have a deposit.
Question 5 comes from Mike. Mike was on YouTube, and he's wondering, does Dallas County host their auctions online or offline?
Okay, good question about Dallas, because they can do whatever they want at the county level, and the county of Dallas will do their auctions online. That doesn't mean all counties will always be online. The treasurer of the county, they're allowed to decide what they want to do. So they want to have it online and they want to have it offline. They'll announce that so people know ahead of time. Dallas County, it's online.
Question 6. This is a good question, Ted. It comes from Lashia on YouTube. Are there over-the-counter properties in Dallas County?
Okay, over-the-counter. All right, now a lot of people talk about over-the-counter. That's kind of a slang term that auction bidders come up with. What happens when an auction takes place, if the property doesn't sell, what is the county going to do? They got to have a process. So they could have a process, go ahead and try and resell it, and they'll probably try to do that at the original auction. But if they can't sell it, now they have to do something with it. So what do they do with it is in Texas, they put it on a strike-off list. Okay, so write those words down, strike-off list. So it's struck off from the original list, and now it's on a strike-off list. Well, all of us people that buy these properties, we can go into the county. You could walk into the county, or you could go online, and you could buy it across the counter. You could go into the county treasurer and say, look, I want to buy property number 777-444, and they would look it up and say, okay, that property is X dollars. You could buy that tax defaulted deed from the county over the counter. So that's where over the counter comes from, and that's where strike-off list comes. Now, another county might call it leftover lands, or they might call it any number of other names.
Question 7 comes from TikTok, comes from a guy named Mark. Where can I go to find the rules to an auction for Dallas County, Texas?
Okay, you could just go to Google and get Dallas County, or just the best thing to do would be just go to Dallas County online, and you'll have so much information you'll be overwhelmed. By that I mean you'll not only find out all the rules, but you'll find out a lot of information about Dallas County. It's not unusual for the county website to take a half an hour or 45 minutes to get through. A lot of information on all county websites.
Well, Ted, what about finding a list for those auctions?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things you're going to want to do before you ever go to an auction is you're going to want to look at properties, and you're going to want to research them. And I've created what I call an auction calendar, which will tell you a lot. And that auction calendar will tell you where the properties are, how many properties are. You can find out what the value of the property is, tax assessed value. You can find out what the minimum bid was. And that's right below me.
Sky from Instagram wonders, how often does Dallas County, Texas have auctions?
Okay, well, once they set a state law, all the counties are going to be the same. It doesn't matter whether the auction is taking place in Houston, which is Harris County, or whether it's Dallas County. All the auctions in Texas take place on the first Tuesday of the month throughout the year. Just as a continuous process, first Tuesday of the month is when they have the tax defaulted property auctions in Texas. Okay, as I close out this video, let me remind you, you're buying properties at an auction. More than likely, they're going to be slightly used and abused, maybe need some cleanup. But a big challenge is selling the property. So I want you to consider this, not right now and spend a lot of time with it, but I want you to consider how are you going to sell the property. It's very important to sell the property because you bought the property. That's where you're going to make your money, buying the property. But selling the property is when you're going to get to the bank. And you want to get to the bank as quickly as possible. To accelerate the selling process, start thinking about installment sales. Because many people that don't have very good credit, poor FICO scores, they'll come to you and they might want to just buy because you'll allow them to make installment sale. In other words, they can make installment payments to you. I'm Ted Thomas. See you in the next video.